Hello, my friends. I'm Holly Elissa and I am waiting happily for my friend and colleague, Crystal Sanford Brown, to join us. We are two trauma survivors helping each other find our way home. And I'm really glad you joined us. We have this fairly new series. It's been going for 3 years. I'd started it solo when my book, Happiness is Running Through the Streets to Find You, came out, translating trauma's harsh legacy into healing. And then I met Crystal, and we have joined up and we talk about being survivors of trauma, early childhood trauma, continuous trauma, and how we can choose to have the best, happiest, most authentic possible lives, given we could be defined by the trauma we face. So if you're just joining us, I am so glad you're here. And I also want to say that our topic for today, ready for this? Not a pretty one, but we're going to make it real. We're going to bring it home. We're going to talk about it until we can find our way home with this topic. The topic today is being shamed. Being shamed. And I'll begin. Shame is an annihilation of the soul. It is a kicking under the curb, under the bus, kicking to the curb, throwing under the bus our identities. It is a way of controlling a person's voice. It is a way of stopping a person's voice. Shame is a neurochemical interaction that we have with each other. Mostly it's interpersonal, where one person shame bombs the other person. Now, what does shame bomb mean? It literally means to throw into the other person's space the message, you don't have the right to exist. So shut up. So shut up. These are also called shame grenades. And what I've come to see in large part because of working with Crystal is that our need to speak up, our need to speak out is stopped. It's stopped by shame grenades, because shame grenades are saying, shut up. You don't have a right to speak. You don't have a right to exist. You don't have a right to have an identity. You don't have a right to anything. So I'm sure the more that is studied, and Bessel van der Kolk has done some of this, the more that is studied, the more we will get the understanding of what happens to us neurologically. But I invite you, if you understand what I'm saying here about having been shamed, not be ashamed of yourself. I mean, these awful things that people say to us, especially as children. In fact, they used to put on the dunce cap on children in school. Dunce, you're a stupid. You sit in the corner. I was sent to the corner, face the corner, can't look at anybody. You are just so unbearable and so unacceptable. You have to wear a dunce cap and sit in the corner. Those were some of the ways that we shamed people. Witch trials was another way of shaming and, in fact, annihilating people who were different. Joan of Arc, when you think about it, anyone who was bringing a message of difference, or even just bringing the message of, I'm an individual, I have an individual voice. Shame usually intercedes, interrupts, interjects, clobbers that ability of people to be able to say, this is who I am, and this is how I see this world uniquely for myself. So I have several examples of shaming, really effective ones. And I want to begin, I guess the question I have is, why do we continue to shame each other? It's more sad than that. Why do we continue to shame ourselves? That's really sad. And what are the remedies? Now, you guys know I'm a recovering attorney, so I talk about remedies. What are the ways of getting out of unconscionable situations? And as you know, unconscionable means somebody who's got power is getting rid of, silencing banishing, eliminating a person who doesn't have that entitlement, that power. So, what can we do, my friends? What on earth can we do to end the perpetration of shaming annihilation? What can we do to say it's okay to be different? It's okay to have a different voice. It's okay not to share the same values, the same perspective, the same philosophy, the same beliefs as other people. And I'm saying that, and I'm thinking that sounds really simple, doesn't it? But I know the exclusion that happens with anybody who has the courage to say, this is who I am. I tell you, some years ago when I was studying it was called a Train the Trainer course. It was offered by a group from the San Francisco Bay Area, and it was called Enlarging the Circle. And it was about learning how to not just welcome, because that implies that I've got power to welcome. No, it's like opening to collaborate so that we become an equal in the circle of power. How do I open myself, my soul, my heart to acceptance of people who are very different from me? And this was about gender definitions. I mean, this was like 10, 12 years ago. And I remember, I thought I was doing fine. I thought, this is all good. I'm hearing this, and this is great, and this will be helpful to a child who was born into a body that doesn't fit her. This will be helpful to a parent who says, I can't stay in this heterosexual relationship. That's not who I am. This will be helpful to so many people. And then, ready for this? In came a panel that I would say stopped most of us and put us into silence. What was that about? Was that shaming? No intention that what this panel had no intention to be shaming. However, the result was to silence us. Now I know that there's the power of silencing. Silencing is often done to, again, smack people down. But there are times when we realize we are in the presence of the divine. You guys know I'm not religious, but what I mean to say here is when we realize we are in the presence of something sacred happening, something soulful, something so alive and so true that we are all called to pay attention. You've probably had this in your lone life where you're talking with someone and all of a sudden, wow, the world comes alive, totally alive. I just was with a doctor for an annual checkup. And I often say to people, so tell me, how's your soul? And many people look at me like, what's that question? And so I assess whether or not they're okay with talking at that level. And if they are, great. And if they aren't, great. I'm respectful. But with this person, when I said to her, how's your soul? She said, in pain. And I stopped and I listened because after all, I had asked her, she was willing to share. I stopped. I asked her, and she described her life partner being in stage 4 cancer. She was telling me her soul's truth and then opened up. Talk about silencing, opening up. We talked about what helps us through. And she said she's talking with her mother helps. So being with someone who unconditionally loves her helps. And also, she's helped by her faith. So, well, tell me about that faith. Tell me about that faith. And this is going on another topic that we will get into and return to. How do you have the faith? And she said, well, it's a matter, for me, faith is a matter of acceptance. It's an acceptance of, I mean, I thought she was talking about life on life's terms, but I needed to hear it from her. this is a whole topic I'd love to talk through with you, and I think we'll save it for another program. The question of what happens when we soul to soul connect and we have a place where we can tell our truth and be listened to. That's remarkable. And that's the opposite of being shamed. I was opening my heart to being there 100% for her. And not only that, I have learned that sometimes an opening, a clearing in the woods, a non-shaming space, a holy space, holy ground, is about listening. I mean, Fred Rogers said, look, when we totally give our attention to a child, we totally give our attention to another person, that is the moment when it's holy. Why? He said, because he was more religious than I. He said, because that's what God does. God listens with total acceptance, with unconditional loving. And so if we can do that for each other, we have created a sacred space on earth. And I believe that. I love those moments. So here's what I've learned. Sometimes I need to simply listen to someone when she's in those moments or he's in those moments. Just listen. And other times I need to connect from my life experience. And so I had the sense this was a time to connect. And so as this person was telling me, she had this faith in a higher power. And I said, tell me about that. She did. And I said to her, when I was a child and the severe trauma was happening, sexual incest, beatings until I blacked out, shaming every day, get her out of my sight was what my father would say to my mother about me because I was not his son, which I was supposed to have been. And just hearing that puts my brain in a flat space of sadness. What I said to her was, look, as a child, I was raised very religiously and I was taught Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red and yellow, black and white, we are precious in his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. Now, I also was taught the opposite, which is that only some of us are selected to go to heaven. Some of us are chosen and the rest of us are going to hell or limbo or something like that. So I got both messages, but I chose to believe that. A little kid, I'm believing, okay, so I'm loved somewhere. Somebody can love me. My mother was psychotic and unable to sustain herself as a person. So even though there are moments when I felt she loved me, she would disappear. And so there was not a safe kind of unconditional love, not safe. And I became her caretaker. That's how I dealt with that. So I shared with this person who had told me when I asked her the question, how is your soul? And she said, I'm in pain. I said, when I was a child, I asked for help. I asked the divine for help. I said, I can't take this. My father coming in my room at night. I don't even know if I could articulate what it was. I just knew that there was this terror and this horror of re-traumatization that kept coming into my life, where a man with godlike power could do whatever he wanted to, which was often evil, sexually abusing, sexually annihilating, sexually incesting. And I said, he asked for help, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it. And I've not believed in a God that turns wrongs into rights. I do understand that I was given this idyllic setting outside of the house of horrors, the house that my father built, made of brick to keep the heat in winter and keep it cool in the summer. The house was terrifying, full of demons, full of deathly rabbit holes and corners. But when I got outside nature healed me. Now, that perhaps that was the subtle statement that I was being taken care of and loved, but it's hard for a child to understand that. In any event, I'm really hoping Crystal will join us because our topic is what happens when someone takes us back to the abuse and takes us back to the message of the abuse. And the message of the abuse was, you don't exist, you're unlovable, you're unworthy. And I'm not going to say the rest of it because it is so painful. When we get shamed, and that means our individuality, our preciousness, our sacredness gets annihilated, and we're told you're worth nothing. You're worth nothing. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to self-annihilate because we're going to annihilate you because you're worth nothing. When that happens, how on earth can I, as a trauma survivor, not go down the absolute, what's the word? Bottomless pit, the abyss of feeling like I'm dead, spiritually dead. I choose not to let anybody steal my soul anymore. That is what evil does. It steals our souls. It stole my soul. It told me that I was not worthy as who I am. And so I'm doing a presentation next month on people pleasing. Why? My friends, if you can hear me, let me see what we got here. If you can hear me, let me see if there's a chat going on. If you can hear me, tell me. Oh, good. Here comes Crystal. Let's admit her. Crystal, Crystal, Crystal. Hooray, honey. I am so glad to see your sassy, badass self. Welcome.
Hey!
Welcome, sweetheart. Love you. And what do you want to just tell us as you're joining us? If you want to start. Hello,
Yes.
sweetie. Yeah.
Yes, I had some technical difficulties, but prior to that, I was sleeping.
Oh,
I
good.
needed
You must have needed it, girl.
yes, and then as I tried to log on, this you know how it different apps will say, "Do you want to change your password now?" It's like, no,
No, no, no.
no. So, all is well, but yes, the sun is shining, and I'm trying to get this straight. There we go.
And you got
Yes.
wonderful color enhanced by a butterfly. I'm loving it. Sweetie, I'm going to ask Crystal, I want to make you the co-host. And as I'm looking at my screen, it says stuff like blur my background. Let me see if I can do something here.
So, go to participant and
I got
find.
it, sweetie. I got
Oh,
it. I got it. I had to go to your screen. And
oh,
isn't that interesting? I went to mine, didn't work, but I'm going to yours, make you co-host, and it should be popping up. We got it.
awesome. How are
Awesome,
you
girlfriend.
doing today?
I was just talking about that. Thank you for asking. My soul is going through much transitioning, and my soul is healing. Feels on the continuum between hurting and healing.
Okay.
My soul is healing, and that means being open to sadness without being destroyed by sadness. And so I was just sharing with people my experience with a doctor who, you know me, I say to people, how's your soul? And I go with whatever flow comes my way. And often people say, what? And that's okay. That's an indicator. So, and some people say, thanks for asking that. Nobody asked that. In this case, this woman, very, very, she's a genius, I'm sure, and she's a doctor and she's very competent. And I see her once a year. And I said to her, so hello. She was all happy to see me. And I said, so hello, how is your soul? Crystal, she said to me, my soul is in pain. My husband is in stage 4 cancer. This woman not only, shares her life with him, but they were in practice together. Her husband
mm,
is the man who healed the cataracts in my eyes. Her husband is a
mm,
very, I love him. I love him. They have children. And so what did I do? And now comes the opposite of shaming. This is what I was coming to, Crystal, because our topic is, what do we do? How do we reclaim? How do I and how do you reclaim our soul when
mhm,
someone tries to destroy us? And you've just come back from this elegant part of the world, the Upper Peninsula, this beautiful place. And you and your beautiful mom are walking around and people are shame bombing you right and left. What does a shame bomb mean to me? And I will ask you too, but what shame bomb means a quick, often nonverbal or a quick, short coded verbal statement of, you have no right to exist. You
mhm.
don't exist. I don't see you. You do not belong here, so shut up and sit down. And if you speak again, I will just annihilate you.
Yeah,
Shame bombs come all the time, and I think they're done to silence us. And I think the worst thing, and Crystal, you know that we talk about this a lot. I will
yeah.
no longer let anybody steal my soul. No one robs my soul anymore. So, as
Mm-mm.
honey, we are subjected daily, sometimes moment by moment, to shame bombs, which tell us we're nothing. And the saddest of them all are ones where I, on the inside, say, yes, that's right. You
Mm.
have a right to annihilate me. You have a right to tell me I'm not worth anything. You have a right to harm me. You have a right to tell me that because I'm a woman, I'm inadequate. You have a right to tell you all kinds of things, like you and your beautiful mom are going to a fudge shop, right, to get fudge to take home to family. And what the hell happens? And what does that tell you about shame, Crystal? Whatever you want to say, I'm open.
I was going to ask you, where were these people raised, or in what environments that their etiquette is so off balance that you think it's okay to tell someone solely because I'm thinking you're intimidated by me loving myself, dressing the way I want to dress, and I don't care. I'm serious when I say that.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody thinks. And this woman says to me, so I see you and your friend, you dress like that every day so people can look at you. And
So
I'm
people can look at you,
startled. You know how you can be so startled that it takes your breath away?
deer in the headlights, honey. That's part of the neuros connection that's being done. It's telling us to shut up. So you get deer in the headlights because this is so stunning. It's like a stun gun, right? Same
Mm-hmm.
effect. Same effect. So they stun you with this shaming statement. What are you doing? You and your friend, who happens to be, let's respect her, your mother.
Yeah.
That's disrespect for an older person. Okay. And they're saying to you, well, how do you get off dressing like that?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the underlying message, girl? What's the shaming underlying message to you that you took from that?
What I took from that staff person
Mm-hmm.
saying that to me in an environment where it was diverse,
Mm-hmm.
um, to some degree, it was diverse to my comfort level because I am,
Open.
as you have stated before, and I've shared with you, I've been in environments where I've been the only, but that doesn't mean that being the only means that I have to feel like I'm representative of the whole culture to which I align. No disrespect, but this woman is saying to me when I hand her my card to pay for the fudge and she sees the Island Hotel, oh, are you staying there? Like, do you think I sold it?
Or are you working there?
Yeah.
Which,
And because most of the workers on the island are from other countries, and they're working hard. That most of them, except this, because I didn't have that from anyone else. Maybe they were raised to where they didn't speak what they were thinking. This one just let it out. And so I said, yes, my mom and I are staying on the island. Mm. And I'm
what
thinking,
that
can I just
means,
have
like, well,
fudge? Yeah. So she, yeah,
daily, you take this trauma, Crystal. Daily, you've got the double whammy of having been a trauma survivor, an incest survivor. And that's the secret that we're
yeah.
not letting be a secret anymore. And then because people look at you and your beautiful mother and they say, oh, we can put her in a box and we can silence her. When you and I first met, your phrase that got to me right away was, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to speak out. And what I was saying before you came on board was shaming is a silencer. It's
Mm,
telling you, shut up.
yeah.
What do you make of that? With this woman, you and your friend dressed like
My
that,
friend.
dressed beautifully. I mean, I kept getting these texts from Crystal with these, like, she's dressed in the colors of her undergraduate college. Her mother is dressed in these elegant, beautiful. We get to be on earth defining ourselves, and we get to dress and display ourselves as we are. Each person is saying, this is who I am. You are saying who you are today. Every time I see you, you're saying who you are. Every time I see myself, I'm saying, this
Yes.
is who I am. And yet, Crystal, it took years for me to feel I could do this. I could
Mhm.
do this. I was so silenced and so ashamed. It was always me beneath the surface, but I learned to dress in hand-me-downs. That's what I was given. I
Yeah.
learned to dress my spirit in people pleasing.
Hmm.
In fact, when we present in Nashville next month, we're going to start off this whole thing about speaking up and speaking out, talking about people pleasing. And what is people pleasing? It's the damnable result of having been shamed into silence.
Yes.
Does
Yes.
that make sense, sweetie?
Oh yes, with you and I, as just stated, we no longer allow ourselves to be shut down and feel, because we have had individuals to say to us, why don't you stop talking about that? Then you can heal. And when we share to them, we are on a healing journey because we are talking about it. Not talking about it keeps you in a space that's not healthy.
Keeps us in the world of unhealthy secrets. Secrets kill. We talk about to heal, I need to feel first. And to
Mhm.
feel this also, there's a hard lesson for a trauma survivor. I need to feel for myself. I need to feel like I don't like this when someone is shaming me. And I'm no longer the small child that was beaten to unconsciousness. I am 77. I can say, no, I don't like that. No, that's not happening. I have had just so many experiences in my life where people just And you ask the question, why do people do this? I think because much of our world is controlling each other through shaming each other. And what does that enable, Crystal? That enables, and we talked about this in one of our first programs, that enables the people who are entitled. I told you about the guy that was in Ms. Magazine like decades ago, but he said the truth for a number of people today. He said, well, yeah, I walk into a room and I realize, and I know I'm superior to 50% of the people there. And here I am saying, who the but that's his privilege. And then I go to law school and I see the same privilege where men are saying to me, and I talked about this before, men are saying to me, well, it's fine that you're here because that means I will have less competition getting jobs when we finish up. Because to him, he's saying you don't exist.
Yeah.
So I think when you back to your question, I'd love to hear you talk about this. What is the upbringing that we have that allows us to annihilate each other? And I believe it's the upbringing that I had. When I was taught keep secrets, when I was taught you're worth nothing, when I was taught to shut up, that's when I learned that there was a hierarchy. And I was at the bottom of the hierarchy. And for me, it was two things that were obvious. One was my darkness. So I was the darkest one in my family. And I have since come to see that my heritage is, as I've said, I'm from ancestors in Ghana, ancestors in Nigeria, ancestors in the Sierra Leone, ancestors in North Africa. But every single one, with one exception of the males in my family who were dark, some of them were blue-eyed, but they were dark, married blonde, blue-eyed women. And what the F was that called? Marrying white. And so the two experiences I had were being shamed because I was the ethnic dark one with in my family. And I look like my father, and my mother's WASP relatives would say they just pour themselves all over my sister. Oh, you look like a rig. You look like a rig. And then they look at me, the youngest, and they say, oh, and you look like your father. Now, my father was a very handsome man, but he was clearly dark skin. What did they call it? Swarthy. He was swarthy. So I had the swarthy thing, and I also had being a woman. And I was always at risk for being shamed for both of those. And you had more. You had more. Girl, from the get-go. You want to talk about that, the shaming that you got and how the hell subtle ways and not subtle ways.
I'm trying to think of the term I learned in grad school, intersectionality.
Okay, girl, tell me what that means.
So the different components that combined can bring you much more, like you and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's not just one, it's multiple. I'm a woman. Not only am I a woman, I'm a Black woman, a Black woman, a woman with higher educational credentials, a woman who owns her own home, who pays her own bills, who is retired, has her own money, who can travel on her own. And how dare you buy fancy glasses? And how dare you be 23 years cancer-free, 18 surgeries, braces on your teeth, and still get chosen to speak at a conference? How dare you? And this is the life that I've had, and different attributes. I call them attributes in a way, because as they are intended to be insulting to me, I turn them into a glimmer. So for that woman, on Mackinac Island, who someone else in in a classification, not negative, but of reality that
Mhm.
would be in white privilege, she wouldn't fit in that category. So she's looking at my friend, my mom, and I to say, okay, I'm on this island as an immigrant, and here you all are enjoying yourselves, staying on this island, and she's
Or you ain't
trying,
got no right to enjoy yourself.
yeah, and
No
you're
right.
looking like a badass.
Right.
So,
Badass is the worst. I mean, see, I hear you that, it used to just be called with attitude. She got attitude. And that was like dangerous
yeah.
unless, well, also we were called what? Uppity women.
Mhm.
And Black women in particular were threatening. Any woman was, but a Black woman in particular, oh
Mhm.
my God, a strong Black woman. How on earth did Kamala Harris get elected? A
And
white man, yeah, took her in.
go ahead.
Well, white man, it took having the partnership, and I'm grateful, really grateful for this with Biden. He gets it. I
Hmm.
think he had that experience with Obama and he had that experience with her. And he said, she is my partner. Don't mess with
Yeah.
her. And that made an opening. And yet the question becomes, do people take her seriously? Do people pay attention to her? I want to hear more from her. I want to hear when she speaks,
Yes.
speaking for so many trauma survivors. I'll never forget, Crystal, when she said, I know a predator when I see one. That was code to me for, I know the
Hmm.
world we live in. And so, girl, here's what and I think I sent you a piece of research on this because it was so powerful. It was the woman who wrote about how being Black doubles the threat and the reality of being shamed, probably quadruples it, right?
Yeah, that's that intersectionality research. When I and you and I have talked about this. When
Mm-hmm.
I started my dissertation, my topic was looking at African American women and women of color who had the opportunity to receive academic scholarship for STEM degrees. So they get the funding, they achieve a bachelor's, the funding is there because,
Yes.
they have to put it out there. And then they get the higher level doctorate degree, but you don't see them in the leadership positions, not in the quantity of graduates, because there's a lot of women of color who have STEM degrees, but you do not see them in the leadership positions, which they're more than eligible for.
Oh,
It's
sweetheart, what was
more
the movie that
important.
made that so effing clear? The movie that had all of
Oh,
these women who were key, responsible STEM women. What
oh
was it?
my God,
It was so powerful, but
it's
people who are
coming.
listening will know. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter what the name is, but the bottom line is we didn't know about these people. I subscribe to a Facebook page which tells me untold Black history because
yeah,
I need to see and to hear and to pass around to 5,000 people every day. Who was this person I never heard of? If I hadn't read the book the two first ladies, I would never have known the power of Mary McLeod Bethune. I knew of her, but I
yeah.
didn't know of her. We don't get teach this. And also I'm thinking of Florida with the governor of Florida is saying, oh no, 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 no critical, no
Race
critical race
theory,
theory,
and
which
he's
is
so
yes.
mistaken with that. God
And I
bless.
love that who's rebelling the Black churches. They're saying
Oh, yes.
they
Yeah.
are speaking up and speaking out. How dare they do that? And what will be the punishment? There's the other thing, Crystal. This is a punitive world. You asked, how are we raised this way? I was raised in a punitive world. If I speak up, if I don't fit, if I tell my truth, I will be annihilated. And the threat of annihilation is real. And we talk about this too, that the neuroscientists, particularly Lieberman, Matthew Lieberman, in his book, this memory going by here, but what he said is our greatest fear, I think it's called social, our greatest fear is that we will not have anywhere where we belong, and we will be like the lone wolf, excommunicated, how about that for a term, kicked out, and so we will die. We'll die. And there is a spiritual part of dying. I believe that a lot of myself has died off. The people pleasing part. Yeah, the people pleasing part, the part of me that accepted abusive friendships, the part of me that felt I had to take care of narcissistic men. I mean, I'm still facing that and still being punished. It's not funny, but girl, we are getting punished just for.
Yeah. So many people ask us, how are you still living? How are you still breathing? Because has anyone ever asked you, why isn't your head in the sand? And you think, why would I, as a faith believer, I know God did not bring me this far for me to give up. So no.
And that's what this doctor with whom I was speaking, she is a faith believer too. And I said, so help me understand this. And I really listened. And there was a profound moment where she said, look, bad things happen. She's a person of color too. She said, bad things happen to good people. And we might not see it. We might not see the good that will come, the rightness that will come from our choosing to live our lives as we were built to live them, as we have learned to live them, not as crouching, hunkering down trauma survivors, but as truth tellers. This is what I experienced. You don't want to hear it? I understand you don't have to hear it. You have a choice. But I didn't have a choice about being a trauma survivor. And now I have a choice about not surrendering or submitting to the shame bombs that come to me every day. Every day. And every day, girlfriend. So tell me, what can we know? Because what we always do in this program is we look at the pain of it. And then we going through the pain. I mean, Robert Frost got it. The best way out is through to feel the pain, to feel it, not run from it, not pretend that it's not there, not deny it, to feel it and then say, and how can I become a more soulful person as a result? So how does living through shame bombing every day help me become a truer spirit, a truer soul? Now I got an answer to that, but I want to hear, but it just came to me, but you say, I want to hear you, girl.
Well, I had to go back into the file bank in my head, open up the drawer, and I found a couple of hidden figures.
All right, girl.
Three brilliant African American women at NASA, sorry.
That's it.
Jamaican hidden figures.
Hidden figures. Thank you.
Was about Katherine Johnson. And I think about the information that you share daily. You have shown me so much that no shame to anyone in my family, well, my mother and father. my mom's sister was a librarian, and
Mm.
so I worked in every library of every school I attended. So I love history. I love reading, but there's still a void of information I didn't know. So when you share that, you embody me to know more about myself. Excuse- and the more I learn about myself, the less I allow anyone to define me. So when those shame bombs come, yes, it may startle me and, like you said, the deer in the headlights, but I get it together. It's like the Holy Spirit comes up in me, and I'm like, "What'd you say?"
Got a lot
Yes.
of Sicilian things that work there, girl. What did you say? Who are you
What?
talking to? Who are you?
What?
I love calling people out in the
Mm-hmm.
moment when they say something. I will just stop it in the moment. But first, I assess, is this a teaching environment where if I say something, it will have an impact? If not going to have an impact, I'm not going to waste my energy. But when someone says something out loud, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
call it. I am going to call it. And I know that will cause silence, but I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
Sweetie, I want to say, here's what I have learned. And it is kind of going into two parts here about the shame bombs. I was controlled as a child by continuously being shamed. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And I believed it sometimes. And I believed that I had no worth because that was the cost of admission to being part of that misogynistic, narcissistic family.
Yeah.
Two things. One, by owning the pain of being annihilated, my soul, people trying to annihilate my soul, and at times almost succeeding, I
Mm-hmm.
learned that I was coming from deeper pain than I ever knew. The deepest pain is that, in terms of annihilation of the soul, incest is one of the most horrific
Yes.
types of violence that anybody can have done to them, male or female. It's usually female, but you know what the spoils of war are when people are in war. What do? They rape the women
Yeah.
because they can control and they can put their own seed in these women, and then they've changed their world. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I've discovered, and nobody else will talk about this in my family, but I'm not crazy. I know this is true, is that for decades, centuries ongoing, the males in my island family of Sicily felt they had the right to initiate their daughters, initiate them sexually. And the modern day example I have of this comes from Vanderkant talking about how
Mm-hmm.
privileged psychiatrists felt they had the right to initiate their patients. They slept with their female patients, maybe male patients too, but they slept with them because they felt that was therapeutic. Now, my father felt totally entitled. And so, what I want to say is the pain of going out of denial and into reality and accepting this is my history
Mm-hmm.
be the biggest shame bomb of all and tell me you're nothing. You're nothing. And every time I watch Henry Louis Gates, right, and he's got somebody on, and people are crying because they're seeing the horrors that happened to their forefathers and mothers when they were enslaved. Okay. So when I look at what happened to the women in my family, and I look at the women who were put in insane asylums because they were somehow saying this isn't
Yeah.
right. Jesus Christ. Well, anyway, here's the other thing I need to say. And I wrote about this in the book, but I'm going to summarize it. My father said to me when I was a teenager, and this exam was being given to students all across New York State. It was called the New York State Regent Scholarship Exam. And it was supposed to pull out who had the best brains, so that we would get scholarships and we could have gone tuition free to most of the colleges in New York State. My father called me over the morning. I don't know, what am I, 14, 15? He called me over and he said, daughter, he didn't use my name, daughter, you, I see you're taking that exam today. Don't expect to do well on it. Don't expect to get a scholarship. You failed this, you failed that. What the hell was he saying? I failed. I didn't get the perfect score on my PSAT. Honey, I got good scores, but to him, if it wasn't 800, perfect, it wasn't anything. And so he shame bombed me. He told me I'm nothing. And not only that, what was he doing? He was telling me, go out and fulfill this identity I'm giving to you of being worthy of nothing. And something happened to me, and here comes the redemption. Something happened inside of me where the shame got replaced with anger. And I said, my little girl's soul said, he's wrong. I'm not stupid. I am not imperfect. I am just myself. And I got intelligence. Maybe it's not winning enough for him, but I've got something. I walked into that exam and I channeled that right through my complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I hyper focused on that exam and said, every question coming my way, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And so that's my story. And I got the scholarship, and he would never say congratulations. And I chose not to tell the man that I got the scholarship, but I'll never forget this either. He's reading the Corning Leader. He's got it because he would come home and he would just cover himself up because he didn't want to communicate. I saw him reading where it was announced my name was first on the list. Lowered the paper a little bit. I see you got a scholarship. It wasn't congratulations or I'm so sorry I said that to you, or no, it was like, oh, I see you got a scholarship. I responded in kind. My own shame bomb to him.
What did you say?
Yes, I said, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I didn't say, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you about that. I didn't say, you were such a-hole for telling me I couldn't do it. But I think in terms of the question, what happens when we're shame bombed? There's an example of listening to my soul and listening to the divine part of myself saying, you don't have to take that.
No.
You don't have to effing believe that. It's various times in my career I have not done well on. I have either aced them or I have not done well in exams.
Yeah.
Because the PTSD overtakes my brain. I was looking at the bar exam the first time I took it twice, failed it the first time. Because why? I was looking at these questions and I couldn't, there were no questions on the paper. They were like the symbols, the words were like worms climbing off.
Yeah.
What was that? That was post-traumatic stress disorder. My brain shut down. I knew if I didn't pass this 2-day exam, my 3 years plus 18 years in school wouldn't have made a difference. So would you talk with us, Crystal? You face this so much. How have you found inside yourself, or how have you found the way out of shame bombs defining and hurting and destroying you?
You just reminded me of some things that I don't recall ever thinking about. So when I was being molested by two of my dad's siblings, my uncle would say, you look better than, one of my sisters, because we were all close in age. My mom and dad got married young, and they were married, until my dad passed away. So technically, she's a widow, still, would be married. And so he would say, you always gonna look better than, the aunt and the sister. And it would just make me feel creepy. So for the longest, I could never accept a compliment, even though I had not voiced the molestation, but internally it was eating me up. And I can recall when I was in AP English in middle school and other higher level courses, I, you know, did well. And I wanted to go to the school everybody talks about in Detroit, Cass Tech. Well, I applied, or mom and I applied for me to go, and I was put on the waiting list. Yeah. But so my first year of high school wasn't in the high school, which was one bus line down from our subdivision. It was several buses in a different community. And I had never seen anyone shot. I saw individuals smoking marijuana in a class. Teachers, here I am, 14, being called on to read, and I'm in courses with 17 to 18-year-olds. And you have to remember, I wasn't given that talk because my mom was reared by her grandmother, and that was not something you're gonna learn it. So it wasn't talked about. So I didn't get that talk. And I'm seeing pregnant girls in my classes. I'm seeing, guys, older guys, men, teachers trying to come on to me.
Yes,
And
of course.
I had a really great English instructor, and she knew that mom and I had applied for me to attend Renaissance, and Renaissance started with 209th graders, 210th graders. I can remember taking the bus over to another community away from my home on the Saturday. I aced the exam. I got into Renaissance. I was one of the 210th graders. I'm one of the first graduates of Renaissance.
Congratulations. I know it's a big deal. Okay.
Yeah, who's the counter school to Cass? It's still looked at second level, but it much better than Cass. And I look at it, I graduated in 1981. If you add 19 and 81, that equals 100. That's the way I feel. So, so when I then went to, I had scholarships, but allowing other people to tell their stories in my family, I won't share, but I wasn't allowed to leave. And my parents were, you're going to stay in the state. And not only are you going to stay in the state, you're going to stay in the local area. So I went to Wayne State University, and
Did you want to
initially,
go someplace else, sweetie?
yeah,
Where'd you
yeah,
want to go?
Justin College in right outside of Chicago. It
All
was a
right.
religious-based college. I went on a tour for a whole weekend, with my youth group
Mm-hmm.
and received a scholarship,
Oh,
but
wow.
my parents said no, you're gonna stay close by. So I started at Wayne State in horticulture. I
Mm.
love plants, flowers,
Absolutely. You still
too.
have that green thumb, girl. Yeah.
But was that the field for me? Mm. Then I changed to pharmacology. I worked all the way up to pharmaceutical research. I
Mhm.
was a legal pharmaceutical salesperson. I went to doctor's offices. I worked for two pharmaceutical companies. I worked for three different pharmacies. I still have a love for pharmacology,
So
but
you were a STEM. You were STEM before
yeah,
STEM. Mm-hmm.
I did not get a degree in pharmacology. I went back to Wayne State 10 years later because in between that time, I hadn't planned to get married as early as I did. And it wasn't because of pregnancy, it was because I felt like I had to save someone's life from abuse.
Yeah, I hear you. We are such saviors, aren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, but well intended. Let me help you. And beneath all of that is we didn't have someone to help us. So we became experts at helping others. My friend, we're getting close to the end, and I want,
oh,
I want to, because we often have somebody with us, and the people that are going to be with us will join us afterwards. And
yeah.
what I want to put out a question to them, and I also want to ask you, what do you want to say to them? Because the question I have to them is, when you deal, now that you know a shame bomb is an instantaneous neurological assault on our nervous system to shut us up and to remind us, devastate us, annihilate us, remind us you're nothing, you have no right to speak. And it comes as quickly as the look comes. You give someone the look, and that child's.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that that is done to people who are speaking up and speaking out. We know it's done to people who are in somehow, for whatever reason, not wanted.
Yeah,
Not wanted. My son, a neurodiverse son, who's also a person of color, faces this all the time, all the time. And so we know the shame bombs come and they're short grenades, short, quick death sentences to
uh,
say, shut up.
yeah. Almost
Um,
what we're seeing, and I'm sorry for interrupting
no,
you,
no,
but
girl, go.
almost what we are witnessing right now with the wars, the
Yes.
bomb, the
Oh, you're
shame.
right. You're right. You're right. You're going to die. Whatever you do, you're going to die. And you have no right to exist. And there's no choice. And look, we already killed your grandmother and we killed your grandchild. So, what I want to ask folk is when these come your way, and Crystal did this thing with her hands, like a shame grenade coming in, and it just annihilates, or that's the purpose of it. What can you do? What can you be? How can we, as trauma survivors, being potentially re traumatized and shut down, how can we come to life instead of cooperating with the death sentence?
Yeah.
That's my question to people that I want to leave folk with. And Crystal, how about you? What do you want to say to folk, trauma survivors listening?
As someone who excuse me, as someone who continuously receives uh shame bomb, even when you give everything within you to help someone, how dare you? And you're like, I'm trying to help you as a school board trustee. I've had that. You may not give them the answer they want. So, who do you think you are that you're not going to allow me to manipulate you so my child can go where I want them to go? No. So, because I've had so much experience where we say my worstest trauma has been, I'm phrasing it wrong.
No, you got it, girl. My painful past becomes
Yes.
my greatest asset.
Ah,
Oh,
th-
thank.
that's my answer.
I hear you.
That's how I have learned to handle it.
I think that's so powerful, sweetie. And as we sign off, I'm so grateful to remind people that we have been led. It doesn't mean we're mindless. It means that we listened to our souls and decided this program needs to take place. We call it two trauma survivors helping each other, walking each other home. And there's a
Walking.
walking each other home, honey, step at a time, one foot in front of the other, doing the next right thing, because the truth needs to be told. And we don't prettify it. We
Mhm,
don't pretend. We don't keep secrets. And we learn. Everything we say here is spontaneous and honest.
mhm.
And Crystal, just in case, if you have the slide to put up to remind folk that are listening, if anything we say at any time during any one of these programs causes, or not doesn't cause, but helps start a trigger in you that says, "Oh, I'm not safe here," because I'm remembering the times I was shamed off. I remember when people tried to eliminate me. I remember when people
Right.
told me I was nothing. So what Crystal's going to put up here is a slide that will give you a number you can call. Now, this is in the United States, and we're hoping to get numbers from other countries. A number that you can call when you feel triggered, when you feel a shame bomb, when you feel a shame grenade coming your way. Here is a number you can call where one of the things we've learned as trauma survivors helps us a great deal is to make a connection with somebody who will listen, sincerely listen, someone who will listen and not judge, be curious, not judgmental, someone who will say, I believe you. I have been through this and I believe you. And I hope I didn't lose Crystal here. You still there,
No,
sweetie?
you have not lost me. I'm pulling up
Okay.
the
The
link.
slide. Thanks,
Yeah.
hon. So
If
this
I
is it's
pull
called
it.
a warm line. And as Crystal's doing this work technologically, because I'm not so good at it, and that's okay. I'm 77. My brain was not introduced to this.
You are awesome.
Thank you, honey. And as are you, and as are our listeners, we have come back from one annihilation after another. And so this warm line, they're all around the country, but Crystal and I will be speaking in the state of Tennessee where no, there's no warm line. But some warm lines
Yeah.
are universal. No matter where you are in the United States, you can call a Cincinnati warm line or a New York City warm line, and they will listen to you. The point about a warm line is you don't have to be alone. You can I'll speak of myself. I don't have to be alone. I can connect with somebody. I can believe that I will be listened to. I can believe I will be listened to without being judged. And I can share my feelings. I don't have to keep them a secret. Everything I just said has been healing practice for me as a trauma survivor. And
And myself also.
thank you, sweetie. Do you have the number right there? You can just read it to us because,
No, it's not.
okay.
It's coming up, and with this technology, it's telling me to reload, and I am searching for. I have placed it on my desktop, but
Okay, sweetie. I'm going to look it up too. Warm
okay.
line, warm, what comes up? Warm bodies first. Warm line. Okay. All right. 24-hour warm
You
line.
have it?
Here's one in Silicon Beach, Texas.
Mm.
Okay, 24/7 warm line for emergency assistance. Lonely seniors. I'm looking for the ones that will tell us that they
Yeah.
apply to all the country, sweetie. Here's one. You got
And
it?
2 hour, no, it's coming up. And
Okay.
2 hour listeners, I will have this for
She
you.
she
Prepare.
does.
But Crystal drove from up north.
She did, girl. And that was a long 4.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
National warm line 24/7. Well, here's a number: 888-475-0309. That's
You have it?
888-475-0309. Now, that might be more about addiction counseling. So I'm not 100% sure, but it does say it's national. It did say itself as anyway. You know what, my friends, it's time for self-help too. Just go online if you're in the United
Yeah.
States and look up warm line for trauma, and you'll find a
Mhm.
number, because you don't have to be alone. So we'll
No,
end this
you
program.
don't.
And yeah, I'd like to have Crystal bring us home. Can you do that, Crystal?
I sure can. I am so grateful for this opportunity to be able to share our authentic selves with no shame, even though people do every day try to shut us up in some way, some fashion. But we know what our mission is. We know our mission as we walk hand in hand with one another around this world, holding each other up as two BADASS trauma survivors, speaking up, speaking out, breaking the silence, and claiming our true voices that we've been told you don't speak that. No, not us. Because we know we're not the only two. And you, as Holly Elissa stated, you're not alone. We are here for you. There is more people who are here for you. But if you can trust us, please do. Thank you.
Amen. Amen, sweeties. We will see you every Monday at 3 East Coast US, 8 p.m. UK time. And wherever you are in the world, we welcome you. We welcome you. And please spread the word. Like us and spread the word.
Like us, share, and catch us on Spotify podcast.
I'm loving it. We got Spotify, we got Facebook, we got YouTube.
YouTube.
We got it all, honey. So join us, and love you. And I'm saying goodbye.
See ya.